Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Sean. It's a privilege and always a good time to be with you.
Thank you. All right. This effort over the weekend, obviously a lot of the attention is focused on the ordnance dropped by the B-2s. The Navy played a huge role in this. Walk us through sort of what would have gone on behind the scenes to get us to that moment.
Well, as you know, CENTCOM has overall operational control. So those Navy ships in the region, the destroyers, the submarines, the carrier strike groups, both the Vincent and the Nimitz, would fall under their purview, and they would be given an ops package that they would execute, and everything would be perfectly coordinated with the Air Force. The president touched on that. Our submarines launched vertically launched missiles that hit a couple of the sites. And again, everything was coordinated with the B-2s.
So once this happens now, what is the role of the Navy? You mentioned the Nimitz and the Vincent in that area. You've got the destroyers, you've got the subs. Are they just waiting for further orders? Are they posturing in a particular way? What do they do now?
Well, huge firepower, as you well know, being a naval officer yourself, Sean, that, deterrence from the sea, power projection, all very critical. We have two carrier strike groups, the Vincent that was on station and the Nimitz that was coming to relieve them. Now there'll be some overlapping duty for both of those strike groups. Each of them carry about 75 aircraft. And then you have all the vertical launched missile systems on all the destroyers, the two cruisers that are present. So again, they're standing by for whatever tasking comes from the White House, and that again will come through CENTCOM. But again, the big concern, I think, for us and the naval force is making sure that the Straits of Hormuz stay open. That will be part of the responsibility of the Navy, and that's why we've amassed so much capability there in that region.
So one of the biggest things that the Navy does is freedom of navigation, keeping those sea lanes open for commerce and other things. What is the role of the Navy right now? If the Iranians try to close it, what do they do?
Well, they're on, of course, high alert, and they would get their tasking to determine what would be the appropriate steps. The naval commanders, both at CENTCOM as well as in the region, would give different options. And then, depending upon the president's orders, they would proactively engage. It would be very difficult to open the straits. Their Iranians have about 3,000 attack missiles that they could engage. And so from a land position, we would have to eliminate those. And we can do that with our TLAMs and the other missile systems on board. But again, that is a very tight waterway, and something that should not be taken for granted that it can be immediately opened. It would be probably the hottest engagement that we would have in that region.
So when they threaten to close it, this is something that it should be taken very seriously.
Absolutely. It is one of the key things that they have in their, as far as an arrow in their quiver, and something that we need to be aware of. About 1/4 of the world's oil supply comes through that very narrow gap. And if you've ever been through there, you can see land on both sides. So it's very easy for the Iranians to target any vessels that go through there. And they've got the capability to do that. Now, they would hurt themselves, Sean, if they did that. Because, of course, a lot of their GDP depends upon the oil that they export, especially to China. So, it would come at with some great impact for them as well.
So I think there's a lot of people who might not have the full military understanding and experience that you have that are saying, well, wait a second, we've got two carrier battle groups in the area. We've got all these other assets, these air bases, military assets in the region, and the Iranians are going to stop us? Like, what? Just give us a sense of like, why is this something that suddenly the great military of the United States can't just eliminate the threat of?
Yeah, I didn't say they would stop us. I said
No, no,
that it
no.
would become.
But I'm saying, like, why is it even a threat? I mean, like, I think for a lot of people, they go, Iran's going to pose a threat to us.
Well, a basic ballistic missile is not that hard to develop. It's not that hard to deploy. And the Iranians deploy those on trucks that are extremely mobile, so they can move them around. And that makes them, of course, a moving target, as you well know, is harder to hit. So if we tried to punch through the straits, they would be able to target us. And there would be some casualties, absolutely. I believe in the power projection of the U.S. Navy to be able to keep those straits open. But it would be, as I said earlier, a really hot dust-up, Sean, and it would not be something that the Navy could just go about unilaterally without thinking through, what's coming back our way. The Iranians pose a threat. They've got over 3,000 of these missiles in their inventory, depending on how many they've already discharged at Israel. But again, it's a potent force from a land perspective. On the sea, of course, as we've demonstrated before, they can't stand up to us at all. But again, when you have seaborne forces going against land forces, the land force has the ability to resupply itself from the rear. All the supplies that we have, all the missiles that we have are already aboard our ships.
So when people look at this mission that happened Saturday night, it was clear how much planning and coordination went into it.
Absolutely.
Does the Navy, when you talk about a situation like this in the Strait of Hormuz, is this something that the Navy has been planning for and wargaming for as a scenario for years, decades, months, or something like that?
Absolutely, Sean. So for decades, right, ever since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, the Iranians have, become our avowed enemy. And that was one of the reasons why, after retiring from the Navy in 2011, after some of the decisions of the Obama administration, that I decided to get back involved in public service and serve in President Trump's first administration, just because the idiocy of being, thinking we could trust the Iranians. So we have had contingency plans, focused on how we would engage in that region for years. In a situation like this, of course, there are many different COAs, courses of action. All those are brought out, dusted off, updated. Our weapon systems are a lot more capable and accurate today than they were when we first started planning for any type of contingency in that region. The CENTCOM gets to work and comes up with different options. All those options are presented up through the Pentagon, through the SECNAV's office and the chairman's office to the president. Then the president decides on which package that he wants to go with. In this case, it was very limited in the strikes on the nuclear facilities, but that doesn't mean that we're not standing by ready for round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it takes to eliminate the threat.
You mentioned the threat that our assets, our ships would be under, right? So I want to get to our other bases in a second but if you're the Navy and you realize, hey, going into this, like I know from a personal experience, the president really does not stomach casualties well, especially on our side. Never mind just any civilian. He's very cognizant of when we commit a strike that we're targeting an asset that we can take out and that they'll limit civilian casualties. If you were
Absolutely.
briefing the president and we said, hey, they're going to try to close the strait, they're going to fire at us, do we have defensive measures? I mean, I get it's war and it's battle and that there's the fog of war. But is this the kind of thing where are we prepared defensively if they were to come after us?
Yes,
Navy-wise?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Our systems on board our ships are capable of knocking down incoming surface-to-air missiles. And so, whatever would be launched at us, we proved that last year in the Red Sea with the Houthis who kept taking shots at our ships. A lot of the systems that the Houthis had came from Iran. So we're not talking about the most sophisticated weapon systems, but again, depending on how many they launch, there's an old saying that there's a quality and quantity. So the more coming at you, the more you have to defend. And, there could be casualties. Absolutely. It's a very narrow body of water, as you well know, Sean, and trying to get in there and trying to keep it open would put our guys in harm's way. And we need to understand that. And the president has appreciation for all those lives. You mentioned civilians, but, I've heard him mention, our men and women in uniform. He's very concerned, for their safety all the time. And you know that better than I do, having worked right next door to him. So again, all that is being discussed and debated right now in the Oval Office and in the Pentagon. And again, what we've proven so far is our ability to strike, the ability to protect our forces, the ability to come in stealthy and get out. I think we'll probably continue down that path instead of charging right into the fire. We could do that absolutely, but we would be putting ourselves in harm's way.
And what about like other bases in the area? Like we've got other, throughout the region. What? And I know this is maybe a little bit out of your specific lane here, but like what concerns should we have about the vulnerability of them?
We should, absolutely. So the Iranians have both short and medium range ballistic missiles. They go anywhere from 700 kilometers up to 3,000 kilometers. So there's 10 bases, some larger than others, like our Fifth Fleet facility in Bahrain, as you well know, that would be in the crosshairs. And dependent upon how Iran decides to strike, just like they did in Israel, all of those are potential targets, which means anybody that is still there is potentially in the line of fire. And so, we have, of course, the ability to shelter in place and the ability to protect our forces. We've built all those facilities. But again, we would take some damage for sure.
When you look around the world, specifically at China and Russia, who I think Iran's probably sending lifelines out to, saying, "Hey, we need help." What do we need to worry about as a country in terms of posturing? What should we look for in either one of those cases to say either this is going to go well for us because they're not getting the help they need, or this isn't a good sign?
Yeah. So today, as you well know, the Iranian foreign minister's meeting with Putin and going through different options, I'm sure, about how the Iranians could be resupplied from Russia. But Russia's involved in a war of their own, as you well know. I was in Ukraine last year, and that war's not going really well for them. They have been exposed in their inability to be a superpower, their inability to have the trained forces that they and most of NATO thought they had. So they've exposed themselves. China becomes a much more concerning situation because, that relationship between us is tenuous as it is. The Chinese are very strategic. If you note, they basically sit on the sidelines and watch everybody else trade punches while they continue to build their forces and continue to protect their resources from a military perspective. I mean, here we're going to be launching missiles. We've already dropped bombs. Those are all things that are out of our arsenal that we can't just, snap our fingers and have back in battery tomorrow. And so these are things that we need to be thinking about. Again, how far do we want to go? How deeply do we want to get engaged? I believe very strongly, as I've shared with you before, that Iran is the most dangerous nation in the world. And the most dangerous nation, as the president said, should never have the most dangerous weapons. So unfortunately, this was something that we were compelled to do. And the Israelis led the way in, and we have now delivered on our commitment to eliminate those sites. And, it's never a good thing to lose any lives on either side. But again, to deny this Iranian regime, this theocratic regime of a nuclear weapon, was something that the United States had to do. We had no choice in it.
Absolutely. Lastly, just walk me through real quick the decision-making process. Who's involved? You mentioned CENTCOM, obviously the SECNAV and the chairman of the Joint Staff. Like at a moment like this, who are the people in the president's ear?
Yeah, those are the predominant ones. The chairman, of course, the president talked about him the other night, General Dan Raisin-Kane, super fantastic guy. I know him well. And working with Secretary Hegseth, as well as with Secretary of State, National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, they would come up with different options. Of course, as you well know, the military structure below that, led by CENTCOM, would come up with the different packages. They would be briefed to those individuals, and those individuals would then brief the president. The president would have the ability to talk to the COCOM, that is CENTCOM. That's probably going on right now because, again, they're the ones who have operational control for everything going on in that region. So those are the key players. Those are the people that would be brought in the room, and those are the ones that would exchange ideas, and the president would be looking for their input.
Okay. Secretary Ken Braithwaite, former Secretary of the Navy, Ambassador, Admiral, and my former boss. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.